How is everybody today? I'm so excited. Okay, let me know in the chat if I can figure out how to pull the chat up. Can you see my screen? The little presentation here. Yay. Okay, amazing, amazing. Okay, now I've got the chat up. So as we are going through this presentation, this is your guys' time. I want you guys to know we are, let me make 100,000% sure. We are recording to the cloud. So that means you guys are going to get lifetime access to this, which is so freaking exciting. So I want you guys to know that you are able to ask any questions as I'm going through this presentation. Usually when I give classes and teach, I don't have slides. I just speak to you, but that is not going to serve you today because we are going to go in deep on how to give a really incredible chart reading. So everybody here, you guys have generalized knowledge on human design and you guys are ready to start to sell your readings. You're ready to have that confidence in actually like delivering and synthesizing the information, which is so freaking incredible. And you also want some information on marketing, the actual workflow. We are going into all of it today. So I'm really freaking excited. Oh my gosh, Lindsay, I love that. Yes, Sierra, I'm so excited. Yay, we are going to have so much fun and your PJs enjoying some tea. You guys are all Sunday vibes. I'm so loving this. Yes, you guys enjoy all of the things. I'm really freaking excited. So when we have, this is the vibe, yes. So when you guys have questions, feel free to drop those in the chat. What we're gonna do is until the end, I do ask that you keep yourself muted. So I'm gonna keep an eye on the chat as things are coming in. Feel free to drop questions there. And then at the end, we'll have a little bit of space for you guys to ask any verbal questions that you have and actually chat with me on chart reading and on chart synthesis. Now, what we're going to be doing is we are going to be going into basic chart readings so you guys can continue to sell these. And I do give a little bit of tips on intermediate. I'm going to go through how I do my workflow, and then we're actually going to look at a chart together, which is going to be super fun. So any questions come up, drop them in the chat. We'll have time to like talk with each other at the end. Let's dive in. Now I'm organized. Now I'm not on the last page. So before we start, something I want to talk to you guys about is you guys are actually going to get the skills to differentiate your readings from other people on the internet. I'm sure you've seen there's a lot of people offering generalized human design readings and saying, hey, come buy a human design reading, come buy a human design reading. And we are going to make sure that by the end of this, you guys are giving readings that actually bring a lot of transformation, are something that people are recommending because they're highly desirable, because you guys aren't just going to spew information at people. We're actually going to be talking about synthesizing the chart in a way that benefits people, because I want you guys to see your chart readings as really valuable and really important, right? Because everybody knows a lot of generalized human design information, but when you are able to see your human design readings as actual coaching sessions, that's where things change. That's where we start to be able to charge $200-$300 for an hour and a half reading, right? However long you want to structure your readings and how you want to do that. But really seeing your readings as valuable is going to be the most important piece of you guys being able to step into marketing these really powerfully and offering them in a way that's differentiated in the market. Because the way that most people are selling their human design readings right now is, hey, come buy a human design reading. I'll teach you about your human design. When we kind of get started, I am actually going to talk to you guys about my entire workflow for readings. I'm going to talk about the actual technology, the questionnaire. I'm going to talk about how I get paid. I'm going to talk about the systems, and then we're going to go into synthesis, because I think that's going to be the most beneficial for all of you based on where you are at, right? And that's going to be super important, because your workflow is everything. That's how you're going to get prepared. That's going to be how you have really strong boundaries. That's going to make sure you don't get overbooked or underbooked or anything like that. So basically, before we get started, I want you guys to know that human design readings are a conversation. And this is one of the most beautiful pieces that's going to differentiate you guys in the market, is that when you give a human design reading, you are going to allow your person to ask questions, and you are going to get those ahead of time, because this is where that coaching aspect comes in. When we give readings, it is coaching. that is something that is well deserving of being paid for. We are not doing the thing where we're like, oh, $50 a reading. No, this is a coaching session. And I'm going to teach you at the end how to market it in that way, so people are highly desiring of these readings, right? But what I do is I do allow people to ask questions, and I have a workflow that allows for that. And something I'm going to tell you guys, like, I have notes while I do readings. I'm going to teach you guys how to do that. And within those notes, I am very aware of my time. This is the most important piece within all of this, your boundaries. I want you guys to be very, very, very clear on your boundaries within your readings before you ever offer a single reading. And if you've already offered a reading, perfect. We get to define those boundaries now. You want to know what is included and what is not included, right? Because this is something, and I'm going to give you guys all the details on all of the mistakes that I have made, because I have made some mistakes doing readings, right? So what we want to do is we want to have very, very clear boundaries from the get-go. What is going to be your workflow? What is allowed in the reading, and what is a question that is too advanced? And you guys, I'm gonna go into my workflow in just a minute, so you guys will see that on the slide. So don't get too worried about like what that looks like yet. We're gonna go into that. Within having these really, really clear boundaries, what we're going to do is we are going to be able to say, and you guys will powerfully say this when it comes up, that is a more advanced concept. We are sticking to a general reading today, right? And they will know this. I'm going to show you guys how to make sure that they know this before they book the reading with you within that workflow. But that is something that you, as the human design reader, have absolute permission to say to people when they start to get in the weeds, because this is something that happens. People are allowed to get into the weeds with human design. When somebody first gets a reading, it is a lot of information. And sometimes they get really excited. They're like, oh, I heard about manifestation arrows. I heard about my environment. I heard about this. And that's where we have to be really clear, because you are the leader of this reading. And if you are allowing people to ask every single question about their chart, you aren't holding the power in the reading. That's really, really important. Your boundaries are so crucial to keep you on track for your time, to make sure that you're getting your money's worth, to make sure that the reading feels really good for you. You want your readings to feel really good for you and be beneficial for them. Because here's the thing, I know you guys have said, it feels like I'm just giving them a bunch of information. We want this to be mutually beneficial, and them being able to ask any question under the sun is not mutually beneficial, right? So those boundaries are going to be very important for you. So what is included? What can they expect? Get clear on this and maintain that throughout the reading. When you say a general reading includes this, when they ask questions outside of the bounds of what a general reading includes, you can say, that is something I actually address in my private coaching. That is something that's actually part of an advanced reading. Today, we're going to be focusing on the basics, and you can even give them a reason and say, hey, this is really important that you understand the general things before we get into those things, because there is an epidemic of intellectualization within human design. I'm here to get you in embodiment, right? And to get you an embodiment, this general information is really, really important. And this is sometimes something that I say at the beginning of my readings. I'm like, you may know some of these things, but I'm going to tell you it in a way where you can actually embody it. And when you guys do your readings, I want you to own that too. I want you to say that, right? I want you to say, hey, you may know some of these things, but I'm going to teach you it in a way where you can actually become your design, because that's the purpose of this. And when we get all stuck up in the weeds with all of these questions, all of these things, all of these incarnation crosses, all of the arrows, it doesn't allow you to maintain the power in your reading. So yes. Okay. And remember, this is your reading. You're not expected to know everything. That's one of the biggest mistakes that I see new readers make, or people who have just gotten certified. They get very, very scared because it's like, oh my gosh, I need to know everything. I need to deliver highly on this. Here's the thing. When you allow somebody to ask questions, this is coaching. You guys are amazing coaches because you guys know the human design aspect and you're able to coach through that lens. That in and of itself is why these sessions are going to be so transformative. And within the boundaries, you are not expected to know everything. So that's going to be really powerful for you. Okay, let's actually get into some of the workflow pieces. This is going to be a little bit technical. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to drop those into the chat. So within the workflow, your workflow is going to be really, really, really important. We are never, ever, ever giving somebody a chart reading where you are pulling their chart up for the first time when you hop on Zoom with them, ever. That sounds like a nightmare. That sounds so stressful. I would literally cry and die if I had to do that. Like at this point, I could do it because I've done like so many readings. But in the beginning, if I would have done that, that would have been a recipe for anxiety. So you want to have a very clear workflow in terms of how you are getting the information from people. And I've had a couple of different workflows. I'm going to show those to you guys now. So I love Calendly. I love Calendly, and you guys can use anything. The things you're going to want to think about is making sure that you get the information in time, that you are getting paid before your reading, and that you have all of the necessary information in terms of scheduling, right? And sending them a Zoom link. Those are the really, really important things. I always love Calendly because it's so easy. It combines all of the workflow in there. So what I do is I open up my calendar, I ask them very specific questions, then they pay me, or I don't know how Calendly does it. I think that they schedule, they pay, then they ask the questions, and then it sends them a Zoom link at the same time. And then I'm prepared for that. I have it to where it sends me an email. Oh, somebody booked a reading. And there's actually settings within Calendly where you can say people can't schedule within a week of their event, right? Or they have to schedule at least a week in advance before their event. I have that turned on whenever I decide to offer readings. I don't do a lot of readings anymore. You guys know I'm like into the high level coaching now, but when I do readings, I literally have them book like a week out. And so I have an entire week to prepare. And what I'm doing the second that somebody books is I'm making sure that I have all of their information in whatever I use for charts. I use Genetic Matrix. I pay like $10 a month for that, but you can use anything. You can use My Body Graph. You can use myhumandesign.com. Doesn't matter, because the more technical pieces of the chart are not pieces you need to see anyway, right? Even with Genetic Matrix, I'm very careful, and I'll show you guys how I present my charts on Zoom. I don't show them all of the information on the side, because that's just where they're going to get lost in the weeds with questions, right? So within that piece, making sure you always get paid before your readings. You can offer payment plans for your readings. That's something that I've done, but I never do a reading until all of the payments are accepted and done, right? When you guys are offering one-off sessions like this, it's really important to make sure that you guys are paid before you do the reading. That's really, really important. Yep, showing the full chart was certainly my mistake. Yep, absolutely. No, you cannot do payment plans in Calendly. So what I will typically do within Calendly is I'll have two different calendars. I'll have one for people who want to pay, and then when they pay in full, they'll do that. If I have somebody who wants to pay in a payment plan, I'll send them a PayPal link that is like 2 payments. And then once they've paid that, then I'll send them the Calendly link to book a free one, and I'll take the price details off of that Calendly link. So that's kind of how I work that workflow. And I have an assistant who helps me, which is really helpful. But if you don't, PayPal and then Calendly, and just having a free Calendly link that you send them after they pay through PayPal, that's a very valuable workflow as well, Sierra. So yes, absolutely. So timeline boundaries, make sure you give yourself time to prepare. Make sure that somebody is not able to book in your calendar 20 minutes before the event. That will stress you out. Absolutely not. We don't do that. So this is kind of what my workflows used to look like. This was when I was first offering readings. This is the workflow that was easy for me. Just making sure that you have the very specific wording of exact location of your birth, having this format very correct in terms of 24-hour time, making sure that you get all of this information exactly how you need it. This is how I enter it into Genetic Matrix. If you enter it into a different software, just making sure that you are very very, very specific on these questions and that you aren't preparing your reading a day ahead of time. Make sure you're doing it way ahead of time so you can make sure that there's no hiccups in the information that they've given you. So something that I added on later on that was very, very helpful that I should have done in the beginning is please share any specific things that you would like to discuss or learn during the reading. This is something that has actually been changed since. So I love to have like list 3 specific things that you're struggling to embody in your design, or list 3 specific things that you would like coaching on, right? Whatever it is, however you word it, that is going to give you a lot of power within your reading to actually address the questions and make this a conversation. This is where you guys get to step into, this is a human design coaching session instead of just a human design reading. This is where we get to pay a lot of money, get paid a lot of money for the reading. And also you get to prepare ahead of time, right? It's not one of those things where it's like they're asking a ton of questions throughout the reading. Sometimes that will happen and I will teach you how to handle that when it does happen. But this gives you a specific boundary, a specific guideline. And it also prepares them to be ready to receive those kinds of questions. So they're very focused. This helps you stay focused throughout your reading. This was something that I added later on. This is something that you don't have to do, right? So within my advanced readings, I offered like advanced deconditioning and centers and arrows only for those integrated in their designs. Basically, what you guys want to do, because you are offering introductory readings, is say, this is an introductory reading. These are the things that you are going to receive in this reading. Mark yes if you understand. That's how it's going to be, right? Because that's going to help them be 100% prepared. And when you guys word this, I want you to say, this is a powerful reading. You are going to receive coaching on the questions that you have during this reading. Those 3 questions that you answered, you're going to receive coaching on this. And we're going to go into the general information. The general information is powerful because you're going to learn to embody your design. I love to include in this last piece why the introductory reading is so powerful, because this is where you embody your design, right? So you can word this like, this is an introductory reading where we go into this, this, and this. I'm going to turn this off real quick so we can stop getting noises coming through on the phone. Okay, so you can say this includes this, this, and this. This is where you learn to powerfully embody your design. We will be going into your coaching questions that you've asked on this reading. Do you understand? And then they mark. Does that make sense, everyone? Perfect. So that's going to be really, really important. Yes. Okay, amazing. Let me know if any questions come up for you guys. So we're going to be going into marketing at the end of this workshop today. But why the questions? This is going to be why your readings are so powerful in your marketing. And this is also what's going to set you apart within that personalized support. I know a lot of us can feel really, really bogged down by the information within human design. It can feel like, oh my God, I have so much information to deliver. I need to go into the profile. I need to go into this. I need to go into this. But when we offer that personalized support, it takes the pressure off because there's a conversation happening. And that personalized support is actually going to help somebody move through their specific things that they're struggling with, right? We want these readings to be really powerful and transformative. I know it doesn't feel good for me to hop on here and tell you guys just a bunch of information without checking in on you guys and seeing if this is benefiting you, to seeing if you have questions, right? It's the same for your human design readings. And when we talk about upselling at the end, that was something I decided to include, is talking about upsells. This is where the power is in that personalized support. Because here's the thing. If somebody hops on a call with you and they're expecting a human design reading, you give them the reading, it's just a bunch of information. There's no room for them to get personalized support. There's no room for coaching. And then you try to sell them into a coaching package. They actually haven't gotten a taste of what your coaching is like, of how you can help them with the specific things that they're struggling with. So this is actually going to give you more power to upsell people at the end if that's your desire, which I highly recommend, right? People don't just want to be read facts. People want to actually be able to integrate and embody this. So that's why when I have that Calendly form, I love to say, like, what's the 3 biggest things you're struggling with in terms of your human design or your business or your personal life, right? We're going to talk about that within your marketing too, of how to frame those questions depending on the specific lens that you guys want as your strength for your human design readings. Okay, so here's how this actually works, because it can feel so pressure filled to do a human design reading, right? It can feel like, oh my gosh, I need to know all the things. I have to impress them. What if they already know all the things? Here's the thing. If they, like, within that piece of like that fear, that limiting belief that can come up of like, well, what if they already know all this? You guys have that covered. You have covered that when they fill out the Calendly form. You say, this is an introductory reading. This is what's included, right? And you also speak to the power of it because you're going to teach them to embody it. So when people get on, they're not like, oh my gosh, here's all the things, here's all the things, here's all the things. You are able to give a powerful reading. You do not need to know everything, and you want to have your notes ready. So the way I do my setup when I do a human design reading is I actually have like the Zoom screen up here. This is exactly what I'm doing with you guys. Just pretend this screen is like this little screen right here is the presentation screen. And then I have notes on the side. I actually don't have notes because I know this stuff so well that I'm just speaking to you guys, but you want to have those notes. So this recording screen would just be their chart. And then you off the recording screen, you would have your actual notes. And this is why you want to give yourself a lot of time when you're scheduling these to go through, to study their chart, to look at the notes, and you have the clear boundaries of what you're offering for your chart synthesis so that you know exactly what you're covering. You don't have to be prepared for all of the things and know all the gates and all the channels. Like, we're not doing that, right? So you pull them up while you're doing the Zoom call, and you want to be really, really clear in that form of like what the reading is about. So there's not unexpected questions. And so you can set boundaries. I want you guys to know that even if you are the most prepared in the world and you have the boundaries set, somebody still might ask like, well, what's my tone for my environment? Or what's my manifestation arrow? Or what is my incarnation cross? Or like, what is my conscious Venus? And when somebody asks those questions, your job is to go, hey, that's an amazing question. That's actually something I save for my advanced readings, or that's something I actually save for my coaching. This is just a general reading. So we're going to get back into whatever you were talking about. You guys have all the permission in the world to say that, right? You guys are the leader in this human design reading. And when people are getting a lot of information, it can feel overwhelming. They can get very intellectual. They can want to know it all. But it's like, we want to lead people back to general embodiment, right? Because here's the thing, they can learn every fact about every single thing, but if they're not willing to embody the basics, human design isn't going to serve them. Right? That's something that is really, really fundamental, and a fundamental part of my business. And the way I talk about human design readings is like, you can learn every single thing, but it's really about embodying the basics. That's where your life changes. And you guys get to say that too within your readings, right? Okay. So I want you guys to really, really feel into and determine your time limits. Now, when I first started offering readings, I was told that my reading should be an hour. An hour reading almost killed me. I was talking so fast. There was no time for questions. There was no conversation. It felt overwhelming. And I have done 2-hour readings. By the end of a 2-hour reading, I am exhausted. I don't want to do anything but take a nap. It drains my energy. What I found is that 1.5 hours is the perfect amount of time for me to get through the information. And keep in mind, guys, I have my information there on that Google Doc. I have all of the things. And when they are asking a lot of questions and we're having a lot of conversations, I skip pieces. When they are not asking a lot of questions, I rant and I go in depth on some things. Like when they talk about the sacral, I will bring in, like, for example, one time I didn't listen to my sacral and then this, and this happened. For example, I was tapping into my sacral doing this, and this, or I was working with a client and this, and this happened, right? You guys can kind of adjust how long you're talking about certain things, elaborate or remove things based on keeping to a time limit. Be aware of your limits and give yourself a specific time. When you guys first hop on a call with somebody, I want you guys to set the container, right? So when it comes to setting the container, somebody's going to come in, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, hi, I'm so excited. And you're not going to start the reading right there. Your first job is to set the container. When you are setting the container, you're going to be talking about all of the things that they need to know for the reading to be successful, right? So we are going into keep talking about the questions, talking about how they're going to get the recording, talking about how long the reading is going to be, right? So for example, when a client hops on a reading with me, I'm like, hi, oh my gosh, I'm so freaking excited to do your reading. And this is some of the things I actually say, and you guys can say these things too. I say, okay, so this is a general reading. These are some of the things you're going to learn. You're going to learn about you're going to learn a lot of really incredible information about your type. You're going to learn about your strategy, your authority, your superpowers, your centers, the defined and undefined centers. And I'm going to synthesize it in a way that really, really is impactful for you. I saw that you answered your 3 questions. That's absolutely incredible. And we're going to make sure we address those throughout the reading. And that being said, the way I do human design readings is different. And I want you to know that you may know some of the things that I go through in this reading. And I want you to listen with fresh ears, because the way I teach human design is different. We're here for embodiment, not just information. I know a lot of people offer human design readings that are a lot of information. You're going to get a lot of information here. And when we're done with this call, I'm going to make sure my assistant sends it to you. Make sure you download it. You're going to get lifetime access, which is incredible. But this human design session is for you to learn to embody. So take the information, and at the end of each section, I'm going to give you a moment to ask questions. And so you get the most out of this reading, right? This reading is going to go an hour and a half. So what I'm going to do is it's going to be about an hour and 20-ish or an hour and 15 minutes of me telling you the things. We've got some time for questions in between. And then that last little bit of time is for you to utilize to answer questions. So it looks like, okay, it's 3:30. Let's pretend it's 3:30. So that means our reading is going to go till 5. And then you're going to get lifetime access. So I'm so excited. Let's dive in, my love. Do you see how I set that container? Let me know. Let me know if that was helpful. I'm so happy I was able to catch the first 30 minutes of this. Incredibly helpful already. Cannot wait to watch the recording. Thank you, Christy. You are so welcome, Abby. Concise, love it. Yes. And it's so important to me within these readings that I really tell people, like, hey, this is different. You're about to embody these things. So I cover, like, I don't ever want somebody to show up to one of my readings and be like, I already know that. I already know that. I already know that. That doesn't feel good for me. It doesn't feel like worth my time for somebody to be like, I already know that. So that's why I'm saying you may have heard some of the things here. We all follow all the human design accounts that say projectors do this and generators do this and manifesting generators do this. And we all think we know these things, but how many of us have actually embodied it? Right. And so that's why the way I say it is I'm like, this is going to be different. You may know some of the things, but you're going to hear it differently from me. And you guys get to own that, because that's going to be true for you as well. I love the way you said it. Amazing. So good. So good. Okay. So that's what's going to allow for questions. And I do allow for questions at the end of every section. This is up to your guys' discretion, right? You can say, hey, I'd love for you to be able to converse with me. That's something I'm a manifesting generator. I love being able to respond to something. Like, as a Manny Gen, if I'm just giving you facts for an hour and a half, I'm literally dying. So if you guys however it feels good for you, it might feel better to say, hey, I'd love for you to write down your questions, save them till the end. That's where we're going to have like 30 minutes to dive into questions. That's absolutely beautiful. For me, I'm like, at the end of every section, I'm like, any questions? Please talk to me. I need them to talk to me, because that gives me something to respond to. And it just kind of creates a conversation, right? And then I can kind of get that sacral energy going again throughout my readings. So keep yourself and your client on track with this. This is something that can happen, right? Where you go into the general information and this is something that does happen, where they keep going, oh my gosh, yes, there's this one time that blah, 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 blah. oh my gosh, yeah, that one time, blah, 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 blah. Oh my God, I've been struggling with blah, 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 blah. And they can get really, really talkative. Now, I love when my people talk to me, but also we got an hour and a half. We got to stay focused. And so within that, it really is your job to be aware of like, oh, okay, they're asking small questions. This feels really good. Or redirecting. Redirecting is going to be very important for some clients. That's just part of it, right? And when you step into this is a reading, this is transformative, this is powerful, but I want to make sure that we have enough time to go into all of the things. That's where you were able to say, okay, that's amazing. Let's hold that thought. I'm going to go back into this piece because I want to make sure we have time to ask questions at the end of this section. We can go into that. And then also there's time for questions at the end. You can redirect if that needs to happen. If you've got somebody who's just like after every sentence, oh my God, there's this one time. Oh my God, there's this one time. You are able to redirect and keep people on track. Does that make sense? Love that perspective and how you do readings. You guys are going to do readings just like this and charge hella for them. I'm so excited for you guys. Okay. So I love telling you guys my mistakes. I love it because my mistakes have been such portals for me and you guys are going to skip them. So we really, when we start, and we're going to start diving into how to actually do the reading now. So how to talk about your readings. We want to talk about our readings in a way where it's like, this could be a possible expression of this. That is very, very, very important because when we say generators are, when we say 6-2s are, we don't give room for conditioning. You guys know how important it is to consider both aspects, right? The pieces of conditioning and the pieces of that are actually the science of human design. And when we say you have an undefined will center, which means you're constantly going to be trying to prove yourself, we don't give the client the space to see if they're in the high or low frequency of that. So you can say you have an undefined will center, which might look like. That's very, very, very important, right? So I want to tell you guys about this mistake that I made doing a reading for a 6-2. This was when in my earlier reading days where if you guys know anything about 6-2s, before their Saturn return, they can do something called soulmating, right? Where they can find a partner and it can be a misaligned. Yeah, yes, exactly. So if I was talking to you, Lindsay, and I was in misalignment, this was how it would come out. I would say to you, so 6-2s before the age of 30 soulmate. So that means you're going to find a partner and that partner is going to be misaligned for you and you're not going to find the correct partner until you've moved through your Saturn return. That is dangerous, guys. We never want to say it is how it is in human design because I did say that to a client and she's like, oh my God, I hope not. Like me and my husband have been married since we were 20. And I was like, oh my God, no, it's not the case always. I just worded it incorrectly. So yeah, danger, Will Robinson, so much danger. And this can be in any piece within human design. We can go and say, this is how it is, or we can say, this is how it might express itself. Right. And so I want you guys to be really aware of the wording that you use, because here's the thing, there's always a flip side within human design where it's like within even an undefined throat, right? It might express itself as being really shut down as a child, or it might express itself as being a chatty Cathy, right? So we really want to be aware of the languaging that we use and never go, this is how it is. Instead go, this is how it may show itself. And then sometimes I ask my clients, I'm like, how have you seen this in your life? Right? If you have, and that's something else that's really valuable is when you have somebody and you're doing a reading with them and they're really quiet and you want to get some engagement with them, that's something you can ask at the end of giving them some information and go, how does that feel? How have you seen that play out in your life? Because that can give you something to respond to. Does that make sense? I want to make sure that that makes sense because that's a really important piece of how we deliver the information to people is we say it may express itself as instead of this is the truth. Yes, very clear. Absolutely. Amazing. Yep, that was one of those mistakes where I was like, I'm so sorry. You and your husband, you do you. The fact that you guys are together, we are good. Like, that was one of those moments where I was just like, I said that wrong, and it helped me reevaluate and give stronger readings. And so now you guys get to skip the 6-2 mistake. Yes, I love this way of phrasing things. Sometimes I have got confused. I've gotten confused when I say more as a statement, then the client goes, oh yeah, 100%, this will happen in your readings, especially if you word it in that way where it's like, this is what happens for an undefined will center. This is exactly how an undefined throat center will express itself, right? When we say things like that, then the client goes, well, that's not me. This doesn't resonate. There may be something wrong. But when we say it may express itself as this, sometimes it will express itself like this. How does that feel? That will get the client more in an introspective place instead of a defensive place, because you've told them how it is. Our clients will typically go like, that doesn't resonate, when we're saying how it is instead of how it could be, and asking them for their experience. Does that make sense? So that's really beautiful. And when you start to phrase it in that way, you'll get a lot less of that people coming at you and going like, well, that doesn't resonate. I'm the complete opposite, right? And so that's something that's really, really beautiful and valuable. I love this. So good. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And Lindsay, it's so funny because I find that like when people do human design readings and they're very closed off and they're just like, here's all the information, it's exhausting for both parties, and people charge less for those. When we make it a conversation, it feels more natural for us. We get to charge more. It's just like the win-win of all of it. And when we're really clear on like, we get to manage the time, we get to manage the boundaries, we know exactly what we're delivering, and they know exactly what they're delivering. It's such a beautiful conversation, and it leads so beautifully into the connection so you can upsell at the end, which is so powerful. Okay, let's dive into synthesis. I want you guys to have a workflow for your chart readings. That's really, really, really important. It's never random. I always have a specific workflow that I'm following. So let's dive into it. Okay, so I am going to teach you some specifics on some of these things. I am not going to teach you specifics on others, right? Because some of these things you guys just know. You guys just know, like within a profile for a 5-1, you're going to research the things, you're going to pull together all your notes, you're going to get ready, like you know those things. I am going to teach you how to talk about the background, right? Because this is something in the beginning where it's really confusing, because some people, when they come into your human design readings, they're going to be like, what's human design? And when people used to come into my readings and be like, what's human design? I'd be like, it's like everything. It's like, I don't know. Right. Like it's so much. Actually, you guys give me just a second. I don't know why my laptop isn't charging, and I want to make sure that we are not dying in the middle of this. Oh. Looks like I just needed to push it into the thing. Okay. Pushed it in. We're good. No laptop's dying. So I'm going to teach you how to go into the background. So obviously this is my general synthesis. This is my workflow. So I go into the background. I talk about how it's body led, not mind led. I go into general details on their specific type. So instead of me going like, oh my gosh, there's 4 different types and there's a subtype and here's how all the types work together, not worth the conversation. If you are doing a human design reading for a generator, you're not going to be like, here's how you interact with manifestors. Manifestors are this percent of the society, that you're not doing that, right? So I'm going to teach you how to do the background. Within the general details, I'm going into the specifics of a generator, the specifics of a projector, those kinds of things. I'm going into the self and not self theme. Then I go into strategy. Then I'm going into the details on their authority, centers, profile, conditioning, and then their questions. I make sure that when I'm doing my notes, I typically just do it in a Google Doc, and I have these different things and then take notes under each one. And then I am prepared, and I address is there something on my screen? I address their questions in the relevant sections. So if they are asking a question on like, sometimes I just don't know like what the next step is, what I'm going to do is like, if it's a generator, I'm actually going to go into that in the general info. And I'm going to say, you're actually only supposed to know the next step in the moment, right? You're not supposed to know and be able to plan out your whole life, because if you're a generator stuck in logic, you're not actually tuned into the sacral. The sacral's responses aren't going to make sense. So you trying to formulate a path on where you're going to be in 10 years doesn't make sense. You have to be really in tune with the moment. If they're saying that they're struggling with like, I don't know, leadership and let's say they're a 5-1, that's where I would really talk to them about leadership in their profile. And I'd be like, okay, well, you actually have a really natural propensity towards leadership. So where are you telling yourself that you need to know more and more and more before you can fully own that you're a leader, right? That's a piece of conditioning that can come up. So I'm addressing their specific questions in relevant sections. This is already taken care of. I'm not like waiting till the reading and then going, oh, what were their questions? I have notes on these things before they ever even come on the computer. Okay, so there's a lot on this slide. We're just going to kind of go into it. I put a lot on this slide because you guys are going to get this presentation at the end of this. So I want you guys to get the most information from this. When it comes to the general background, I frame it from this perspective of not telling you that human design is a combination of the Chinese I Ching or whatever, the I Ching, the Kabbalah. I'm not going into the quantum physics. I'm not saying it's all of astrology. Those are not the things that people care about when they ask about the general background. And if you have somebody coming in new to a reading, what it really, really is important to talk to them about is that nothing in human design is a box. That is the point of all of this. And you guys get to use this however you want. You can read something similar if you want to kind of start your readings this way after you set the container. But I talk to people and I'm like, okay, you're going to hear a lot of information here. Nothing here is a box. Everything that I tell you is an expansive, empowering. It's through an expansive, empowering lens. There's nothing good or bad about human design. It just is. It shows you how to work with your energy. It's expansive and it's the path back to yourself, right? And that's what this is kind of the general background of what that is. So about how they chose their design before they came here, that kind of stuff. But you guys can feel free to use that in your readings, right? And so this is something that I always say at the beginning of readings, no matter if somebody has had a reading before, if there's somebody who's brand new to human design, there's somebody who's had like whatever. This is something that I am including no matter what is the point of human design. Because the point, if we give people all of this information on their type, their profile, the strategy, all of the things, that is kind of stuck in the weeds if we don't go back to the main point. If this is how you are meant to operate in your life on the path of most alignment, right? This is the body intelligence over the mind intelligence. So usually at the beginning of my reading, I'm giving a little spiel on we have all been so deeply conditioned to use our mind to make decisions. We've been conditioned to think things through, to use logic. And I want you to know that there's a power available to you in your body, in your innate intelligence that is connected to your intuition, to divine intelligence that is guiding you constantly. And when you are able to tap into that, you move on the path of least resistance. You move on the path of your desires and you start to know things, and you don't have to worry about the stress of being in logic, the stress of knowing the next 10 steps, right? And so what we really do is we go into all of these different pieces to lead you back to the path of least resistance. Do you guys see what I did there? I took them back to the main point. If we don't do this at the beginning of the reading, it can feel like just a bunch of general information. It can feel like, okay, that's the cool thing, but it kind of feels like a box that you're putting me into saying that this might express like this. But if we start by telling people what the point of these readings are, what the point and the purpose of all the information is, suddenly they're looking at this through the lens of, oh, this is really important. I need to listen. I need to start implementing these things. I need to start being these things. I need to stop playing in logic. Right? Really expressing in your own unique way, or given the template that I'm giving you, that this is about them embracing their body intelligence as opposed to their mind intelligence is really important. And then we get to start going into the details. Does that make sense? Do a quick check-in. See how everybody is. I feel like so many readers forget to include what the point is and forget to speak it in a way that really makes sense to their readers, right? Or to the person they're doing the reading for. Because you can go into, oh, it's a combination of this system and this system and this system and this system. They don't care, right? They don't care when Ra founded it, how Ra founded it. They care about how it's going to impact their lives. And so from this lens, we're able to really give them we're able to also set the container of how they're absorbing the information, right? And how they're using it. Because we, even as ourselves, can get stuck up in the weeds and get into the information as readers and forget that we need to communicate that the main point of this is that they're going to start following the innate intelligence within them. And that's going to lead them on the path of what they're wanting, what they're desiring. Yes, and thanks for sharing the PowerPoint with us to have. I'm a visual learner. Amazing, Lindsay. That's so, so good. I knew that like this one was not going to benefit you guys if I just talked to you guys. I was like, I need a presentation for this. So I'm so glad that that benefits you. Okay. Yeah, I always mentioned that the main point is to get them back into their body, but I definitely love the term of body intelligence. I love that. Yes, 100%. 100%. And it's really important that we talk, like when you guys are going into the general information and when we talk about strategy and we talk about authority, it's important that they know the point of those things before you go into those things, right? So your strategy is really about how you are interacting with the world, right? How you're interacting with things that are coming in, and how just your interaction, right? Your interaction with things, with people, with events, with synchronicities, right? And really talking about that piece and then going into their specific strategy, really important. When we talk about authority, it's how they make decisions, what's right for me. Then go into the piece where it's like, okay, your specific authority is you're a sacral authority, which means this, 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 and this. When you guys go into authority, something that I love to include with every single authority is how they can actually practice tapping into their authority, right? So something that I love is like for sacral authorities, I'm like, tap into like your food, tap into your clothing, use your body as a pendulum, start to tap into your yeses and nos, practice yes no questions. For an emotional authority, I'm telling them keep a journal, keep a journal when a big decision comes into your field. Start to weigh out and measure the energy transfers. For same for a lunar authority. If it's somebody who's a splenic authority, I tell them like go back, look at all of the times when you've had like a really strong no and you've listened to it and it's protected you, or look at all the times when you felt regret from not doing something that was a yes. From a G center, I'm talking about like making sure that every decision feels more you. Like you can practice this by asking yourself, does this decision make me feel more me? Right? For the will center, it's like, does this decision make me feel powerful? Does it make me feel good? Right? Mental projectors going into that speaking, right? Just going through all of the ways that they can practice is going to be really beautiful and beneficial for them. And I love to include an example, right? Like within talking about an authority, talking about how a yes or a no is going to feel. That's something that can be really, really valuable as you go into that and kind of open the floor for discussion. I love discussion during the authority section because they actually start to engage with you and they start to look back at their life and go, oh my gosh, that was a splenic hit, or oh my gosh, I rushed that decision as an emotional authority, right? Or oh my gosh, as a mental projector, I haven't been talking about the things that I haven't been clearing, or I haven't been talking to people who just listen. I've been talking to people who give me advice, right? So really like looking at those pieces and opening the floor for conversation during the authority section. So beautiful, so powerful. Though I have always wondered, how does this body intelligence with play out with a mental projector, for example? Okay, this is actually a really good question. It is a little bit more human design related, but I'm here for all of the questions, so I will answer it for you. So that is really about the cool, calm, clear that they get within their system afterwards. So within being a mental projector, even though they're going through that mental process and they're doing a lot of clearing and they're talking about all of the things that are bouncing around in their head and they're playing with logic, they do have an innate body feeling afterwards. No matter if you're a projector, reflector, generator, manifesting generator, no matter what authority you have a body feeling at the end, right? So theirs is very much about doing that clearing and that processing. And then they're going to feel calm in their mind and they're going to feel calm within their body, because even the headspace is part of the energetic system. So at the end, they're going to feel that cool, calm, clear, collected. But until that point, they're going to feel like, oh, gotta get it out, gotta get it out, gotta get it out, gotta get it out. And then they're going to hear themselves say the thing, and then they're going to feel that calm within their body. That's how they're going to know. Does that make sense? Thank you, Christine. You were so welcome. Yeah, so even with like lunar authorities, there's been a lot within human design where it's like most of the authorities are body felt, and it's like, no, they're all body felt. That's what I truly believe. Like, just because you're a reflector or a very like or like a mental projector or self-projector projector, like whatever, doesn't matter. Even these ones that where it seems like the authority is outside of ourselves, is actually not. It's going to be felt within their systems. Like I've actually worked one-on-one with a reflector client, and when she is in her yes and she's given herself time to work through following the lunar authority to the best of her ability, because I truly don't think it takes 28 days for reflectors to come to that cool, calm, clear place. Sometimes they come to it in 14 days. Sometimes they come to it in 2 hours. Like that's a rule that you could get me on a tangent with that. But anyway, as they run through that process, they do have that body feeling at the end. So yeah, amazing. Okay. So after that, we want to talk about centers. Oh, guys, I'm so excited. We're going to be going into some of the center synthesis in just a second. So much fun. So when you guys are talking about all of the things you're running through the background, you're going into the general information, you're going to strategy, and then you're going into authority. Within going into authority, you're going to be talking about a certain center, right? So let's say it's for me, you're doing a human design reading for me. I'm a sacral authority. So you've already talked about the sacral and that center within the authority section. Then you're going to start talking about my defined centers, right? I'm going to give you guys that list of the high and low frequencies of defined and undefined centers that you guys are going to be able to use for your notes on readings if you want to, or if you have your own stuff, that's totally acceptable too. But we want to talk about the defined centers first because, oh, we have a typo. Just ignore that. You guys are fine. You guys can read my, I manage my way through things. You guys can read through all of my typos and just enjoy them and just know that I was having the best time creating this. But we want to talk about the defined centers first, because this is going to be their points of natural strength. Now, within talking about defined centers, this goes back to my 6-2 mistake. We never want to decide if somebody is in a high frequency or a low frequency based on if their centers are defined or undefined. We still want to be talking to them about it through the lens of it may come through like this in the higher frequency. Sometimes in the shadow frequency, it can look like this. Having that really generalized, open, just kind of like getting them to contemplate instead of telling them how it is. Going to be really, really important. So don't make any assumptions based on if it's defined saying, oh, you're a really, really strong speaker. Say you typically could have a really strong voice in the higher frequency of this, right? We want to be careful with how we word that and being aware of like their response and going like, does that resonate? And if somebody who has a defined throat center says, no, I actually feel really shut down around that, we can say, oh, okay, then there may be some shadow frequencies going on there. My recommendation for that is to tap back into the sacral, or start to embody this piece, or start to decondition all of the times you were told to be quiet because your voice didn't matter, right? We can give them tools based on how they respond to what we're saying. But within the defined centers, what I typically like to say is these are your areas of natural strength. This is where you are naturally like have consistent energy within these centers. So that's something that I do word, and then I'm very careful about saying like, oh, you are this versus it could appear like this. Then I go and do undefined centers, right? I think it's really, really, really important that we're careful about how we talk about undefined centers, because I've seen a lot within the human design world that's like, these are where you need to be like really careful. You could have so much conditioning here. You're always in the shadow frequency here. That's not necessarily true, right? And so we really want to be speaking through the lens of like, you could be powerful in both defined and undefined. You can be in shadow frequencies in both defined and undefined, and you could be is the important thing. We never want to say you are in the shadow frequency or you are in the highest frequency of this, right? We want to give them permission to take and leave what they want by saying it could be, right? And within the undefined centers, I typically just say these can be areas of a little bit more conditioning, but they also hold a lot of wisdom, right? Because if I were to say to somebody who has a completely undefined head center, like, you can get stuck in you can be stuck in so much overthinking. It can cause a headache. You can be like this, and this. That can feel very limiting if somebody's already worked through that and they're at the point where they've worked through that within their lives. We can make brash generalizations within human design, but honestly, it has a lot to do with conditioning and environment. And somebody could have completely worked through all of the conditioning of an undefined center and be in the highest frequency, right? This is something that happened with my partner. It's like he has a completely undefined head center, and I was talking to him about it, and I was like, oh yeah, because he's into human design a little bit, and we were talking, and I was like, oh yeah, within a completely undefined head center, like I've seen that it's possible that you could get into habits of overthinking in the past, and we were talking about it, and he is in such a high frequency of that center that he can like literally hear people's thoughts before they even say them out loud, right? He's very, very intuitive because he's cleared that center and he's worked through the conditioning of there. So we want to give people to be in give people permission to be in different areas of like shadow versus high frequency and never make assumptions within that, right? So remember that both defined and undefined centers can be heavily conditioned, and they can also be very empowered. So no matter what, we want to speak to about them through the lens of empowerment. Does that make sense? Let me know. Let me know. Just hit my water bottle on my necklace. Good reminder. Oh, amazing. Amazing, amazing. Okay. So as we go into this, we're going to start talking about some chart flow, which I'm so excited about. I'm so, so, so excited. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, amazing. So I am obviously going to be giving you guys that PDF talking about the high and low frequencies of each of the centers, whether it's defined or undefined. But I want you guys to be careful with this, right? Because part of powerful chart readings where we get to charge a lot of money for them, we don't just want to be going through and saying, you have this defined, which means this. You have this undefined, which means this. You have this defined, which means this, right? Or this defined, this defined, this undefined, this undefined, this undefined. I love to do undefined centers. Secondly, I think that that's a really beautiful flow. But we don't just want to be telling people about their centers. We want to synthesize flow. This is something that sets your chart readings apart and something that is very intuitive that you guys all either have the skill to do or will soon have the skill to do based on today's training, right? So when we're looking at people's charts, we want to be aware of the synthesis of flow of energy, right? Because when we think about it, all of these defined channels are flows of energy. And so energy flow really, really matters when we're talking about somebody's chart. So if I were to read this person's chart and go, okay, you have a defined, talking about their authority, going, oh, okay, you've got a sacral authority. And then I can kind of go into, I typically like to go to what's attached to their authority second. and then go into any other defined centers that are split next, and then undefined. So that's a really beautiful flow that works for me. That's not an overall rule. Some people like to work their way from the bottom to the top to the bottom. I just really like to go into what's attached to the authority, right? So you get to feel into what feels best for you. But it wouldn't serve this person if I were just to say, okay, here's your sacral, here's your root, here's your spleen, here's your throat, here's your ajna. Okay, let's talk about these ones and then this one, right? When I talk about like undefined, I usually go from the top to the bottom. So that's kind of just the flow. I've done bottom to top. It really doesn't matter, right? But that doesn't give them an idea of chart synthesis. When we start to talk about chart synthesis, we start to talk about the way the centers interact and communicate with each other based on the definition. This is really, really powerful because for this person, what I would do, what I would say to start to bring chart synthesis in and start to give them a better understanding of their chart and start to open up communication and conversation and say, okay, so it's like you're gonna get the sacral hit. You're gonna have a lot of root energy coming to the sacral. So exercise is gonna be very, very valuable for you. And your sacral is gonna be backed up by your spleen. So you're gonna have that like intuitive nudge, right? But something that can happen is you can actually get a little bit stuck in your head and stuck in there's a bug. There's a bug. Okay. There's there's a bug. You can actually get stuck in logic a little bit more and be really, really logical in the way you communicate. So something that's going to help you consistently is throughout the day, just making sure that you drop into your sacral and feel out that energy and see how you can express that desire energy. Do you guys see what I did there? I took into account that she has a split definition and how there may be lapses in communication between the centers. This is something that will change your clients' lives as you start to deliver that in readings, right? Because if I don't mention that, we might be in a space of telling the client, like, just tap into your sacral, just tap into your sacral, without giving them the awareness that there may be a little bit of slower communication. There may be some problems with getting stuck in the head and being stuck in logic, and we need to consciously drop down into the sacral. This can happen with split definitions and triple split definitions. And if she had, like, for example, if she had let's say these two centers were undefined and it was just the sacral to the solar plexus, I would say there's a lot of passion behind your sacral. There's a lot of emotion behind your sacral, and that's really beautiful. But sometimes you could have troubles communicating your emotions, right? Because there wouldn't be any connection there. So we're really, as we start to go through the reading of the centers and going into the high and low frequencies, we also want to synthesize how these centers are interacting. Does that make sense? Do you guys have any questions for synthesis? Feel free to pop those into the chat if you have any. I'm going to go into some more things. This is me, you guys. If you want to know all the things about me, here they are. So here is my chart, obviously. Something that I'm going to say for readings, do not include this. Your client, your person who you are doing a reading for, is if you include any more than just this, and sometimes I even turn the arrows off because somebody will be like, what's the 5 and the 4 mean? No, we're not going into the substructure of human design right now, right? And if they asked, I'd be like, that's an advanced reading, or that's something you can actually get within my private coaching, right? So I only show them this, because if you show people this, they're going to be like, what's personality receptive mean? What is transferred motivation? Tell me the transferred view. Ooh, I want to know the channels. And that it will get you stuck in the weeds. They will want to know. So when you are doing a general chart reading, only show them the chart. Okay. Yes, love that. It is basically the opposite of what I was taught. I love your way much better. Oh, I'm so glad, Sierra. Yeah, sometimes teachers can kind of go into the space of being a little bit more logical, but I feel like this is a more conversational way of teaching where it's like it really allows for you guys to be intuitive, because I really do believe that human design reading is an intuitive process. We are coaching, we are talking about conditioning, we're talking about a science, but that science means nothing if we don't take into account the way that a chart is synthesized, right? And so I'm so glad that you're resonating with this way of reading. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with some chart synthesis. Let's look at this chart and kind of look at the way that things are running through me and my energy system. So when I would be doing a reading for myself, the way I'm looking at this is I'm giving the general background information. I'm talking about the body intelligence over the mind intelligence and really tapping into that. And then I'm going to start going into, okay, so this is what it means to be a manifesting generator. You are very multi-talented, you're very multi-passionate, you are on a path of mastery, but you this, and this happens. You got to bring in that piece of the manifester where you are informing. Sometimes your not self-name can be this, going into you're going to need rest, all of the general information, right? And then I start to go into, oh, yes, so you're a sacral authority. Really, really cool. They ask a question of like, oh, what does the arrow mean? Sorry, back to the reading. That's part of my advanced thing. And I'm really excited to get into this piece. So what this is it's a sacral authority. Here's how the authority works. Here, and I typically, when I do readings for sacral authorities or even generators and just manifesting generators, I love to bring in my personal story. Sometimes I'll bring in stories from my other clients for other people, as long as I'm not telling them their names, of course, right? But I'm giving examples. I'm talking about how to tap into the sacral. And then I'm going into like, oh, okay, so here's your authority. Obviously, your strategies to respond. I'm going into strategy before I go into authority. And then I'm going into the actual synthesis of the chart and the centers. So that's where I've already talked about the sacral. And then I start to talk about the flow of everything. So I'm talking about like, and I really like to look at it like this, right? Where I'm like, okay, let's see how this is connecting. So I would probably start with one of these two centers, finish up with these two centers for the defined. So what I'm talking about is I'm talking about, okay, so your root is directly connected to your sacral. So what this means is you're going to have like lots of energy, and it's going to be like bursts of energy, and sometimes it can translate to pressure, right? And so your job when that happens is to do blah 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 blah, which is to tap back into the sacral. And then I'm going to say, okay, and you also have a defined spleen. The spleen is the center of like safety and things like that. So this is really cool because your spleen is actually backing up your sacral. You see how it's connected there. That's going to be really like your intuition backs up your sacral. So really being tapped into your body when you're tuning into your sacral responses. And something you can do to even deepen into that sacral response is ask like, does this thing make me feel safe or do I feel unsafe? Right. And that will help you solidify into your sacral response. How does your sacral response feel? We'll talk about it. They'll be like, oh yeah, my sacral feels like this when it's a yes or a no, right? Then I'm going into, oh yeah, so you also have a defined G center, which means this, and this, and it's connected to the sacral. So it's like, when it's a yes, this decision is going to help you feel more you, right? And when it's a no, it's going to feel less you. It's going to feel like you're off your path. It's going to feel like you're compromising yourself for something. Also, sacral to throat, like you speak very passionately when you're speaking about things that you care about. So being very aware of like within this, if you're speaking about something that you don't really care about, or you're doing things that don't light you up, your voice is going to feel shut down. You're not going to feel really excited about the things that you're talking about. And talking is important for you and your business and your brand, right? And I'm usually aware if they're a business owner, I talk to them at the beginning and I look at their questions. If they're a business owner, I'm going to be talking through the lens of like, use this center for your business, right? And so when I'm looking at that flow, I'm like, okay, you're going to feel some pressure within this. You're going to feel some intuition connected to this. Do you see how I'm synthesizing that? And then I typically like to start at the top and work my way down for undefined. So I'm like, okay, so you have an undefined head center. So sometimes there is a possibility that within this expression, you may feel like you're overthinking. Do you feel like you resonate with that? Okay, talk to them about it. Perfect. When that happens, drop back into the sacral, being aware of like, oh, sometimes I try to answer other people's questions or I'm searching for inspiration. Amazing. So you're searching for inspiration. Something that's been very helpful for me, because I love to bring in my personal experience as I'm talking to them, right? This is a coaching session. I'm going into, yeah, no, I have an undefined ajna as well. Sometimes I can get in a space of searching for inspiration, purchasing all the courses. So what I do every day is I set an intention and connect to myself, or I get out in nature, or I change my environment to get inspiration, right? I'm giving them advice. I'm talking to them through these things. Then we're going into, oh, okay, so you have an undefined will center, which could express itself like this. And sometimes I'll be like, does that resonate? Or if we're running out of time, I'm like, okay, onto this one. And then I'll ask them like, how does all of that feel at the end of the section? Does that make sense? So really want to give you guys a feel for how that synthesizes. And it's really nice within having that single definition. When you have a split definition, just being aware that there's possibly like, if I was a split definition here, it might be like, oh, this thing, it might take a little bit longer, right? Or like if I had a root to solar plexus, I don't know why I keep wanting to say something else. Root to solar plexus, I could say there's a lot of pressure with your emotions, and sometimes it's hard to express because there's a disconnect with the throat, right? Yeah, I feel so, I love this. Amazing. Oh, I'm so glad. So glad. I feel so good that you tell examples. Also, I always feel that maybe me using examples meant that somehow I was not able to explain without examples. My funny brain. Yeah. Yeah, 100%. They're not required, but when they come up, it's so easy and so beautiful. I will even use, like, you guys have heard me say, like, I use examples like from my own life. I use examples from my clients' lives. I use examples from my friends' lives. I use examples from my partner's life, right? I'm going into those pieces too, because it's like we as human design practitioners, we study this, we know this, we see people's experience with this. And when we can break it down in a way where it's relatable for people, they're more likely to have transformation from it. Okay. This is my partner's chart. So looking at his chart, it's super fun. We obviously wouldn't include this piece, but this chart I would read a lot differently, right? And so I would go into a space of starting with the solar plexus and going into, okay, you're an emotional authority. Something I want you guys to know. With emotional authorities, that's the only time I am looking at which ones they are with the channels. So that's something I prepared for when I am reading for an emotional authority, is which channel they have, because I think it does make a really big difference and it serves them differently. That's why we give ourselves so much time to plan ahead, because emotional authorities, that's a really important piece, because the way it would express if he was a 59-6 would be a lot different with the 49-19. So with the 49-19, I'm going into a space of, you are not looking for why you feel bad when you go through an emotional low. You're just giving yourself what you need. Touch can help you move through your waves, right? Versus somebody who has like the 55-39, where they're like, random spikes of high and random spikes of low, and kind of being around people can impact that, being away from people can impact that, right? Really being aware of emotional authorities and their wave is going to be really important for you. So for his reading, I would go into, okay, first, we're a projector. So here's general information on projectors. You guys do this, you guys don't do this, you guys sometimes have conditioning to work like this because of society, because of whatever. Here's some of your superpowers. You see processes really well. Then I'm going into, okay, so you are an emotional authority and your specific emotional wave is this, right? Go into how to move through an emotional wave, how to move through decision making. And then I'm going into center synthesis, right? And I'm paying attention to, oh, okay, so now I'm looking at what's the center most directly connected to that authority. The next center that I would read for him would be his root. And I'd be like, okay, root has a lot to do with pressure and kind of energy, and you have a little bit more adrenaline. And because you have a defined root, it could be this, here's the higher frequency expression, here's the shadow frequency expression. And I see here that your root is connected to your solar plexus, which means there's a lot more passion behind your emotions. You guys, he's a music producer. He literally sings, and he sings the most sad songs, the most happy songs, the most beautiful songs. I see this expressed so deeply in his life, and it's so, so beautiful. So I'm able to synthesize that piece. Then I'm going to be moving on to the spleen, and I'm like, okay, there's also like, here's the spleen defined, which could mean this. Here's some of the higher frequency expression, here's some of the lower frequency expression. And I see that you have a lot of intuition connected to your root as well, which means fuel to intuition, which means you're very intuitive. You have a sense of well-being within yourself, of what's good for you and not good for you, and also within others, right? And you have just these intuitive nudges that you get to follow and how those feel, right? Then I'm going to be going into, ooh, okay. And from this, you also have a defined will center. This means that you may have a lot more willpower, and you have most likely this sense of worthiness, the sense of innate worthiness. And you do best when you're competing against yourself, not trying to show up anybody else, but just really in competition with, how can I be better than the version of me that I was yesterday, right? And so that's how I would synthesize that and kind of give them the flow. And then I would start working my way down and going, ooh, okay, so we've got a completely undefined head. And the highest frequency, you can basically read minds. In a lower frequency, it could feel like you're overthinking, like you're kind of lost in your mind, right? And then I'm synthesizing the way down. Does that make sense? Okay, let me read these. Sierra, I'm an emotional authority that has all gates and no channels from the solar. You have to have one channel, because you wouldn't be an emotional authority if there wasn't a complete channel. Let me know which channel you have, because if it's defined, then you're an emotional authority. And if it's defined, there's something else connected to it. So let me know what you mean by that. And you can come on and unmute yourself if you need to. I love that you both have single definitions, right? It's so cute. How do you decide which channels to study and which ones not to, for instance, when a person has a lot of channels? So the only channels I ever talk about in intermediate or beginner readings, and now my intermediate and beginner is just like beginner, because I've noticed that there's like literally no difference. I only talk about what's full channels coming out of the solar plexus, because that's the only thing that really matters when it comes to like specific waves. Now, if a person has like the 4919 and the 5539, I would talk about how these waves are running simultaneously. Here's how this one's going to feel. Here's how this one's going to feel. And you will, and I don't tell them how to differentiate, because that's something that actually really does come with like a lot of embodiment, is being able to differentiate your waves. So when somebody has multiple waves, I'm telling them like, okay, here's how this wave will express itself. Here's how this wave will express itself. And then I'll go, the best way for you to start to tune into these is to keep a wave journal. And whenever I say that, that's it. That's the end. I tell them, keep track, because then you're going to start to be able to feel into your patterns. And then they're going to be able to gain that awareness over time, because on a call, people aren't going to be able to like, oh, I can tell it's this wave or this wave. It takes a really, really powerful like level of intentional studying yourself to really start to differentiate those waves. So I just tell people like, hey, if you're ready to like start to differentiate your waves, or even tap into your single wave and start to understand it, keep a wave journal, keep an emotional authority journal. That's something I'm recommending for all of my emotional authorities. I lied. I just looked at it. I have the, what did you say? 35, 36. Oh, okay. Amazing. Okay. So you're the buildup. Disregard the question. Perfect. No worries. I was like, wait, how is that defined? That doesn't make sense. So yeah, for yours, I'd be telling you like, oh, expectations, be really aware of you expecting life to get better and better and better, and just start to lose the expectations and trust that life always gets better. When you're going through a low, don't make it mean anything. Don't wait for the other shoe to drop, that kind of energy. That's how I would kind of guide you through that. And then I'd be like, keep an emotional wave journal so you can start to see where you're placing expectations on things. And when you're feeling bad, don't look for a reason why. Don't look for external circumstances. Just go into a space of how can I give myself what I need. Do you see how I kind of synthesize that? Yes. Okay. Amazing. I'm so glad that that's helpful. You are so, so welcome. Okay. So we're going to have a little bit of fun here. What question do emotional authorities journal on? Oh, I love this. Okay, this is a really good question. I think it can benefit you guys. So when it comes to emotional authorities, something that I really love them to track is like tuning into how they're feeling moment to moment. So I literally, for some of my emotional authorities who are actually clients, at the end of every day where they're starting to get in touch with their waves, is having them at the end of the day just do a check-in of like, how was I feeling? Where am I on the emotional scale? And when we talk about an emotional scale, that's a really valuable way for emotional authorities, doesn't matter what type, to start to tap into how they're actually feeling. Because here's the thing, a lot of emotional authorities have a lot of conditioning around emotions. So they can't even tell when they're in a heightened state. They can't even tell when they're in a low state. So when I talk about it, I'm like, okay, how excited am I? How sad am I? And they rate it on a level of 1 to 10. And so if they get in the habit of doing that at the end of every day, they're starting to get in tune with their body. They're starting to get in tune with their emotions. So I'm having them do that of like, oh, you had a really excited day. How excited? Were you at a 5? Was it a 7? Was it an 8? Okay, amazing. We're riding a high emotional wave right now. And if they're feeling really bad, I'm like, okay, where are we at? Are we at a low, right? And when it comes to the specific waves, like the 59.6, I'd be having them journal on, okay, when you're in a low, what do you need in this? I mean, this is for all emotional authorities. How can I give myself what I need in this moment? How can I let this be okay? Right? This too is good. That's the energy for all emotional authorities. Now, when we look at the 59.6, we're asking, do I need to be alone right now? Or would it feel better to be with people? Am I placing expectations on relationships? For the 37.40 and the 49.19, we're asking, okay, how do I let this be okay? I'm not assigning meaning to this. What if this means nothing? What if this is just a reset for me? They're diving into those questions. They're asking themselves, would touch make me feel better right now? Or do I need to be alone? Right? For the 55.39 and the 22.12, it's really asking like, ooh, am I looking to blame something outside of myself right now? How can I just understand that this too is going to pass? And how can I give myself what I need in this moment? For the 36.35 and the 30.41, we're looking at, okay, how can I release expectations? How can I trust that life gets better and better and better without needing it to get better and better and better, or waiting for the other shoe to drop, waiting for things to get worse again, being protective of my energy? How can I flow and understand that this too, even if it feels bad, is just a reset so I can build back up again and I don't have to make it mean anything? Does that make sense? The replay of this is going to be so valuable because that was not on my notes. But if you guys have emotional authority people that you are reading for, you guys can go back and kind of listen to that and get those like general questions that would be very valuable for them. And when you lead them to doing that journaling, it's going to serve them so deeply, because like there's so much conditioning around emotions. So I'm ready to, yeah, oh my God, I loved this, especially because I'm not an emotional, but many others are, and it was so good. Yeah, it's so, so valuable. I'm not an emotional authority either. So I have gained such an understanding of emotional authorities through studying the people who are close to me and asking them lots of questions. And it helped me to start to understand the patterns that can come up with the different emotional waves. It's really crazy. I love it so much. Okay, so if you guys are able, start to drop into the comments, if you guys are present in here with me, how you would start to synthesize this chart in terms of what you would read for the authority, what's the next centers you would look at for defined, and then what undefined center order you would read it in. There is no right or wrong answer. I just want you guys to start to get an awareness of how this feels. This is a self-projected projector you're looking at. So just in the comments, be like, okay, I would do this center, then this center, then this center, then this center, and then I'd synthesize, and then I do this center, this center, this center. I want to see if you guys are really getting a feel for this. This is so much fun. I'll give you guys a minute to do that. And what's happening here is you guys are starting to train your brains to look at a chart and just be like, yeah, this is how I'm going to read it. Because honestly, like I'm giving you a lot here, but chart reading is so easy because you guys are going to have your notes. You're going to be able to tell people, you're going to set the boundaries, you're going to stick to your time, you're going to leave things out when they're talking a lot, you're going to add things in and talk to them when they're not talking a lot, and you guys are going to be able to charge hella for these. Chart reading is really so easy. This is probably the favorite workshop I've ever put on. I've done so many workshops, but like this is so much fun. Okay, I would start with the G center. Phenomenal, amazing. Move to the throat, highlighting that their desires, feel the need to express themselves vocally. Then I would mention, since they are G authority, it would be very important to be solid in their values, their mission, who they are. Yes, 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 yes. 100%. And something that can happen is when we have somebody who's really quiet during a reading and we're just telling them the information. I don't ever want you guys to go into a space of like being afraid of like, oh, well, what if we finish early? What if they feel like they're not getting their money's worth? Whatever. I have had readings go by where I've spoken for an hour, they haven't really interacted. And then at the end, I'm like, this has been absolutely incredible. Now we get to dive into the coaching. Tell me all of the things, tell me the things that you're working through. And that's where you just fill the time with coaching. That is so freaking valuable for them. So I don't ever want you guys to be like, okay, I need to hit the time perfectly. Like you can adjust during the reading, you can pivot. Then I would go upper centers, head and nausea, phenomenal. Highlighting that it's okay to feel those loud thoughts and high mental pressure, but that is why it's good to go back to the G center. Yes, absolutely. That is a perfect synthesis of defined centers. Absolutely perfect. Yeah, nope, that is perfect. And this is one where within the undefined centers. Okay, and I'm gonna read this for everybody who's watching the replay. So I would start with the G center and move to the throat, highlighting that their desires would feel a need to express themselves vocally. Then I would mention that since they are a G authority, it will also be important to be solid in their values, their mission, and who they are. Absolutely perfect. Then I would go to the upper centers, head and ajna, highlighting that it is okay to feel these loud thoughts or high mental pressure, but that this is why it's good to go back to the G center. Yes. I guess after that, I would go to the root to simply highlight the differentiation between mental and root pressure. But after that, I don't know. That is absolutely perfect and beautiful. And so from that, there is no particular order that I would do this in. I would just feel it out. Sometimes it's going to be really obvious, like which centers to do and which order. Sometimes it's not. Like I typically start with my undefined centers, going top to bottom. This one, I would start root to bottom. Why? I don't know. Right? It feels intuitive to start with the root. So I would probably start with the root and then I go to the sacral and be like, here's some of the conditioning. Then I probably go here and here. Doesn't matter which one. And then I go there. So I love this synthesis so, so much. So powerful. Excellent job. Okay. Amazing. So that is how you synthesize a chart, bringing that synthesis aspect into it. Really, really powerful, right? That will kind of teach them and keep it from feeling very boring for you. If you're just kind of going into the details of each center and not how they connect and interact with each other, it can be boring. Let's keep it interesting by synthesizing it for people. So obviously within the profile, this is kind of the vibe. You guys know your profiles, you give them the information, but you really want to talk about it through the lens of what their human design type is, right? Because a 5-1 projector is going to be a little bit different than a 5-1 manifesting generator. Like a 5-1 manifesting generator might be really, really excited and have like a lust for knowledge and all of these things. And their 5 line might come through really, really sexy and just all of these things. A projector 5-1 might be very systematic and may have the very solid foundation within their own life. Like all of these things really, really vary, and how you interpret it intuitively, very much up to you. But really talking about the profile is just a way that they express their life, right? And through their purpose, and how they play out their purpose is going to be important, because if we don't mention that, it's just a bunch of numbers and we're giving it a bunch of generalized information. Within the profiles, something I also love to mention is what are the strengths of those profiles? What are the shadows, right? When we talk about like the 1 kind of over searching for information, never feeling solid, the 2 kind of getting irritated with people, the 3 kind of feeling like they're a failure all the time, the 4 feeling like everybody's gonna leave them, the 5 feeling like the black sheep, the 6 just feeling like really confused and like, what am I even doing with my life? Everything feels like I'm messing up, right? We want to speak to those shadows that may come up, and also the strengths of like a 1 line. When you feel solid in your foundation, people flock to you. The 2 line, you know so much. You just don't give yourself credit for it. The 3 line, you learn by experience. There's no more powerful teacher than that. The 4 line, your connections are literally going to elevate you into your next level. And you are going to elevate so many people into their next levels, because that's your superpower. The 5 line, you create new ways of seeing the same thing, and you bring new ways of doing things that are really powerful, that completely transform society. The 6, you are so freaking wise, right? Really bringing those things to people. That's going to be very helpful. Okay, the last thing that I go into, conditioning. We can go into conditioning the whole time. Obviously, we can go like the shadow frequency is this, the thing is this, right? But I like to wrap it up with general conditioning as well, because this kind of brings us to a close for our reading. This is where it's like this energy of like, okay, amazing. Now as a manifesting generator, there's a possibility that you might feel unstable if you follow your soul, right? As a generator, you are going to go through lulls sometimes, and you may go through lulls sometimes, right? Bringing that correct languaging into there, and then going, but something that you can condition or decondition is really seeing the lulls as a launch pad into your next level. Conditioning for projectors, feeling afraid to be seen, right? Conditioning for reflectors, just feeling like nobody gets it, like all of these things, right? We can bring in all of these pieces of conditioning. But something that I really think is important is we talk about conditioning from a lens of deconditioning is simple, because a lot of people can get really stuck up on conditioning and go into a space of like, how do I decondition? How do I decondition? And so something that I say at the beginning of my section where I talk about conditioning is I say, okay, so I'm sure you've heard of conditioning within human design. And we all want to make it so complicated, right? But here's the thing. Conditioning is as simple as stepping back into your strategy and authority. When you realize that you're off in a pattern, when you're off in the weeds, when you're showing up in a shadow frequency, deconditioning happens the second you have an awareness of a pattern. And so I am going to tell you these pieces of conditioning, and you just get to form a beautiful awareness. And as you have this beautiful awareness, tap back into your strategy and authority. These things naturally decondition as you're in alignment with those things, and your awareness of them makes them decondition really, really fast, right? And so that's kind of how I precursor it, because you can't really give somebody a step-by-step, like, here's how you decondition, because deconditioning is a process of awareness and tapping back into the truth. Awareness, then tapping back into the truth. The truth is our authority and our strategy, right? So give those general pieces of conditioning, and then I typically allow them to reflect at the end. Within those questions at the end, sometimes there is no time for questions at the end. Sometimes it's like, okay, well, we got to ask the questions during the reading. It looks like it's 4:30. It looks like we're, oh my gosh, it's 4:44 right now. Yay. It looks like it's 4:44. That concludes our reading. I'm so freaking excited. This was absolutely incredible. You've been such an honor to read for. I will make sure you get your call, whatever. There's another little typo from my manifesting generator existence. And then let the client know when to expect the call. Have you guys noticed? I don't know if you guys use Canva. Sometimes the spell check is like way behind, and I'm like, I don't have time to sit here and wait for you to spell check for a minute. Very like OCD and manifesting generator. It's such a combination. So let the client know when they can expect their call. Tell them that they're going to have to download it if they have to download it. Just making sure you close all those loose ends. So now's the fun part. I am so excited to talk about this. Marketing typos or MG lifestyle. Yeah, you get it. 100%. They are so MG lifestyle. Okay, marketing. So people don't want human design readings from you guys. They want what comes from a human design reading. I want you to absorb this, know this, feel this, be this. Because if you market, I am offering human design readings, you may get some bites. But if you are talking about the transformation that comes from a human design reading, people don't buy the thing. They buy the transformation. I don't buy a car. I buy the ability to go places. Does that make sense? So we want to be thinking about what they're getting from the reading, because that's the real power. That's where your guys' marketing is really going to shine through. And you guys got so many tasty tidbits of marketing throughout this entire presentation, because I told you, you're not just a reader, you're a coach. Here's how to articulate that. Here's what to say. Here's what to do. And so you guys, I want you to start seeing yourself through the new lens of, I'm not just a human design reader. I am a transformational human design reading coach. That is what you are doing here. And I've given you guys so much language. As you rewatch this replay, you get to take notes and kind of like start to position yourself that way, right? So something that is really valuable within your marketing is to utilize your own personal embodiment. This is something that I did in the beginning, where I talked about how I used to be working 16 hours a day. I was burnt out, and human design took me into 10K and 15K cash months, because that level of ownership, that level of beingness really allowed me to market through the lens of, this will completely change your entire existence if you let it, right? I'm not saying you're getting a human design reading. I'm saying you're going to completely transform your income, your life, your business, your light up, all of the pieces, right? Like, that's very important, and that's very different. The way you guys market these and talk about these really matters, right? I don't know why I always get scared of going into conditioning. I feel like that's the next step of conditioning, is asking how to decondition. So it's like a whole other thing, right? And when people ask how to decondition, I'm like, it's as simple as awareness and tapping back into your strategy and authority. You cannot tap into your strategy and authority and be in that deep space of alignment and also be playing out deep patterns of conditioning at the same time, in the same moment. I'm either tapped into my sacral, or I'm tapped into an undefined head pattern, right? I'm either tapped into my sacral, or I'm tapped into pressure from the root, right? So it's really, really leading them back to the simplicity of conditioning and deconditioning, because it really is simple. People just love to complicate it because we intellectualize it. Right. So yes, transformational HD coach. I love it. I love it so much. So utilize your own personal embodiment and use that as a lens that you get to market through. What will someone learn? And I want you guys, if you guys are struggling within this marketing piece, to actually journal on this. What will someone learn, and what will this do for their life? What will this do for their life? Right? You can niche, you can choose. And this is why I say choose your lens. Why do I always add an E at the end of lens? That's how my brain spells lens. Choose your lens. Your lens is business. Your lens is parents. Your lens is stepping into more income. Your lens is stepping into more ease. Your lens is embodying your next level. What is your lens? You can utilize your own personal embodiment story, look at it, journal on what will someone learn and what will this do for their life, and then choose your lens. Your lens is your marketing power. Does this make sense? Let me know in the comments. I don't know why it says undefined there. Marketing. So if you guys are struggling to tap into the power after this masterclass, I really want you guys to feel like readings are easy. Readings are so easy. I can get prepared. I can do the things. Like, this is so easy, right? That's one of the things I really want you guys to embody, because that underlying energy, like you guys all here, you are into human design, you understand law of attraction, you understand energy. When you show up powerfully and get in a space of like, people want my readings, that's where you're really going to feel that just like pull to people signing up, people loving your readings, all of the things. So if you're having trouble tapping into the frequency of understanding that you're a really powerful human design reader after this workshop, I want you to journal on 30 reasons why this will change somebody's life. And then also journal on 30 reasons why you are the person to do it. Because not only is this a great exercise in building up your confidence, but this is an excellent exercise in creating marketing points. Can you imagine if you picked 30 reasons why this will change somebody's life and 30 reasons why you're the person to do it? You have post after post after story after story after masterclass after masterclass of things that you can offer and things that you can use to promote this, right? I'm intrigued that you chose money income growth as your lens. Love to know how I can hear more about that. Yeah. So that was a huge thing for me. I was trying and pushing in. So as a manifesting generator, I was very in logic. I was very trying. I was very pushing. I was trying to plan things ahead. I was filled with shoulds, so many shoulds. I was doing everything because I thought I had to. And so that meant I was saying yes to no's. And I started speaking to, when I started clearing up the things and saying no to the no's and yes to the yeses, that created so much space in my schedule. I went from 16-hour days to 4-hour days of work. And what happened is I started making more money and calling more clients in. And all of a sudden I was hitting this amount. And from that, I'm able to speak to your human design reading can help you create more income. Do I need to talk about how it's going to create them more income on the human design reading? Nope. They can ask that as one of the questions in their questions, but how I market it and what I deliver, I'm already clear on what I deliver. The lens through which I market it, they get to ask their questions. They get to choose their own lens. I choose the lens that relates to me because my marketing is powerful that way and draws in the people who relate to my experience. Does that make sense? Yeah. And Sierra, you get to change your lens. As an MG, I chose so many freaking lenses. So Sierra asked a really powerful question. As an MG, it's really hard for me to niche down, choose my lens. How can I move through that when looking for an angle to approach the marketing? You get to play with your angles. When you journal on 30 reasons why this will change somebody's life and 30 reasons why you're the one to do it, it's like literally impossible to keep that under one lens. You're going to have multiple lenses. You're going to have multiple ways. And that's the power in it, right? So sometimes I was talking about money. Sometimes I was talking about burnout. Sometimes I was talking about like how much I was working, calling in the right clients. I was speaking through all of these different lenses. I was also talking about how human design has transformed some of my clients' lives. Like one of my clients completely pivoted her business away from this into this other thing and saw everything explode. So it's just really looking at like the lens of personal experience and what lights you up, because as an MG, your sacral's turned on, people are coming. Doesn't matter if you switch up your lens day to day, month to month, week to week, post to post, doesn't matter, right? And I typically keep my lens under the generalization of business. I like to work with people who own businesses, because people who own businesses, I used to be a business coach. I actually am a business coach right now. What am I talking about? But I've always loved business. I've always loved strategy. And so that's a lens for me, but there's so many things underneath of that light me up too. How are your readings different? That's something I want you guys to speak to in your marketing. You already know how your readings are different. Now that you've done this workshop, your readings are different because they are coaching sessions. They get everything they get in a reading plus more. They get transformation here. Your readings are different because it's about embodiment, not intellectualization. Your readings are different because of your lens, right? Does that make sense? So really, really speak to how your readings are different. You don't offer human design readings. None of you guys do. You guys offer transformational human design sessions that are readings and coaching all in one. Like when you're marketing, don't say I have human design readings open. You can say I have human design readings open and these are different because these will help you do this. You will feel this transformation, right? You get to be so powerful in that marketing. And then a couple of selling tips. Something that I love to do is I love to do specials. I like to go, oh my gosh, guys, I'm so excited. I opened my readings. Here's the transformation. Here's the things. You go through all of it. And then you say, I've got a limited number of readings. These sell out fast. Book here. Or I offer a special and I say, hey guys, I've got like $100 off of these readings or whatever, right? You don't have to discount. You get to do what you want. Sometimes I'll do master classes and then say, hey, if you want to book your reading where you're going to do this, 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 and this, you guys get to play with what you do to market these and sell these. Do what feels good. Tap into your own authority to do this. Tap into what feels good for you. But through this lens of marketing, you're going to be able to sell them really powerfully. And then the last piece of this masterclass, I want you to understand that now that you do readings in this way, you have already created such a rapport with the person that you are on the other end of the phone with. If you are just reading them a bunch of facts and information, then they're not going to relate to you. They're not going to want to continue working with you on such a deep level as if you are coaching them as you do it, as if you are connecting with them, as if you are sharing your personal story with them, which you guys are all learning to do. You are learning how to powerfully synthesize a chart. And if you want clients, upselling at the end is going to be extremely powerful. I have done this both ways. I have given people, I say, hey, this has been absolutely incredible. And I make it easy for people to stay in my world. That's something that's very important to me is I do this in the way that I do this and you guys can contemplate and figure out what feels good for you. But I will typically say at the end of a reading, if I love the person, I'm going to say, hey, so this is incredible. Here's what to do after your reading. Here's what happens when you embody this for a long period of time. And I actually have these special coaching containers where it's whatever amount of money to work with me on Voxer or with calls for a month or for 3 months. And I think you would be an excellent fit. Take your time to decide, tap into your authority, but you, for the next week, if you want to join this, your human design reading cost will be applied to this coaching package. Do you guys see what I did there? I made it easy for them to stay in my world. I upsold. I told them exactly how it would benefit them to be in a longer term container with me. And I told them I think they'd be a perfect fit and how it'd benefit them. I made it easy because I gave them the amount off. You don't have to do that. That's just something that really resonates and vibes with me in my world. It's funny. I think that I would have a lot of questions, and I feel so good now. Amazing. Oh gosh. Yes. I was like, if you guys have questions, I would be surprised because we went in depth. We went in depth. Oh my God, you guys, this was incredible. Thank you so much for trusting me to deliver you guys this information. I hope to see you guys in my world in other things. This has been so, so beautiful. I love you all, and I hope you have the most incredible Sunday night ever. I will be getting all of the things to you guys within the next couple of days. So expect that within the Facebook group. I will make sure to tag you. Have an incredible evening. Bye, loves.